G'day, Stu here and welcome to another episode of Tech Tuesday, where every Tuesday we show you some new, exciting or just different technology in the FPV and drone racing world. And today we've actually got a pretty cool one, and I can't believe it, it's from Eachine. Usually they make sort of some budget stuff. Today we've got an all-in-one stack that has everything except the receiver as well as a HD camera. So what we're going to get, this is going to be perfect for people who don't like soldering. It reminds me very much of the Magnum F4, which was a little bit different because that didn't have the camera, but this bad boy, it's pretty much got everything. So if you're building a drone, it's got your ESCs, it's got your VTX, it's got your flight controller, your PDB, it's got your FPV camera, and it also records some HD footage, so at like 1080, so it's gonna maybe replace some of the splits. Anyway, what we're gonna be doing, we're gonna be sticking it on the bench, having a quick squeeze at all its components, and then we're gonna put it into a quad, take it out and rip it around. Anyway, let's get started. Alright, so here's the Stack X on the bench, and honestly, I think straight off the bat, let's talk about how crazy this is. This is your HD camera, your flight controller, your ESCs, and your VTX, like everything you need minus your little receiver, which is fair enough because look, everybody uses different radios and all that sort of stuff, so I can understand that you don't get one of those, but this thing is pretty much ready to rock and roll. It reminds me very much of the Magnum from Emax, but the only difference with this one, it looks a little bit bigger, but this one, it's got a HD camera, so that is ridiculous. If we can get some HD footage with this bad boy and it works well, we're definitely going to be on to a winner, because imagine how easy our builds are going to be if all you've got to do is hook up the motors and hook up your battery leads, and that's going to be it. Now the first thing we should do, let's stick it on the scales and find out how much it's going to weigh. Got some littler scales right here because I know some of you guys were saying, Stuart, get some things that weigh a little bit more. Okay, there we go. Coming in at pretty much 50 grams, so bang on the money, 49.78. So look, for what you get, I'm not too concerned with that weight. If you didn't have the camera, it would be significantly lighter, so let's put that to the side. Everything else, so your ESCs, flight controller, VTX, all that sort of jazz with the recording part as well, coming in at about 33 grams. So overall, look, I'm pretty impressed with that. Now what we should do, because look, we're going to quickly go through the features, because look, what I want to do, I want to put it in a quad, get out there and get flying and talk about how easy it was to build, all that sort of jazz. But let's quickly go through some of the specs. So on the bottom, this is where our PDB is. Oh, I should also mention what you get with it. So you don't get too many extras, but you get the extras that actually count. So you get two little parts for your VTX, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and two little bits of wire, and then also just some braiding right there. So what I really would have liked was if these actually came pre-soldered. That would have made our job a lot easier if these two little battery leads were connected straight up to our PDB. Anyway, let's jump in, talk a bit more about the PDB. So yeah, on the bottom we've got our PDB ESC. It's a 4-in-1, so and it's also 35 amps. So look, that's going to be fine. And the crazy part, it takes from a 2 to a 6S LiPo. That's right, this thing apparently can handle 6S, which is absolutely insane. And I think if you're going to be building one of those maybe ultralights and you want something that can handle 6S, well, all you've got to do is match up some motors, and then apparently this thing is going to be ready to rock and roll. Now connected to that, this is where we've got our flight control. You can see it's just got these little connectors right here. That simply plugs in. It comes like this, by the way, straight out of the box. You've got a little SD card. It's an F4 board, a rock and beta flight, and it's also our VTX in there. So you can do things like change your power, all that sort of jazz that's rocking the beta flight OSD. So really, really handy. Pretty much everything you need anyway. And one part I did like about that VTX, you get these two little pigtails, which I would recommend you make sure you put some hot glue on these when you're going to put them in. You simply connect them on your little UHF connector, and one of them is SMA and one of them's RP SMA. So I'm actually kind of amazed that Eachine had the foresight and they thought, gee, not all of our customers, like one or the other. So I like that they gave us both. It's not usually like Eachine to be offering some useful extras. So that part was a nice, pleasant surprise. So I'm going to be clipping one of those on. And then on the top, this is where we've actually got a bit of magic. So it's like a RunCam split clone. We've got our FPV camera. It's also our HD recorder camera. So we're going to be getting some nice, juicy HD footage, and we won't need to put a GoPro on our quad anymore. Now look, it records at 1080p, 60 frames a second, so I'm pretty happy because that's what I have on my GoPro. You've got your little microphone there, but what we will have to find out is there very much latency? I'm not going to be doing any tests, but I will be doing a flight test, I guess. So I don't have the equipment to test the actual latency, bar a stopwatch, all that sort of jazz. I don't care about those numbers. What I want to know is when we're flying this around, does it feel different than some of your, like your run cams or some of the splits or the Swifts, or for that matter, does this thing have any noticeable latency, and if so, are you still able to fly with it? Yeah, but overall, look, I think it's a pretty cool little package. All you've got to do is put your receiver in, you're ready to rock and roll, wire up your XT60, and I think honestly, this is the future. Some things I would like to change. You get some little standoffs, all that sort of jazz. I wish the standoffs were a lot smaller because we don't need all this space whatsoever. You can see through there. There's way too much space in there. Cram it down, Eachine. I'm going to be swapping these out and making a much smaller stack, and then I think it's going to fit very, very nicely in one of our builds. Anyway, what we should do, that's the unit on the bench. Let's see what it looks like in a quad with the magic of editing, and then we're going to take it out, rip it around, show you guys some flight footage, and how does it record and how does it feel. Anyway, let's see what it looks like in a quad with the magic of editing in 3, 2, 1. Rightio, thank you very much, editing. So what I've done, I've gone and I thought, gee, what should I put it in? And I decided, look, I wanted something small because traditionally a small craft can't carry a GoPro, but I also wanted something that would pack a lot of punch so we could test some of those higher voltages, because look, it can rock a 6S. So what I've done, I've put it in this tiny little 4-inch frame, and yes, I know it doesn't fit very well because look, that camera on a little tight frame like this, that's definitely going to be getting in the way of the props. So that's something you really need to be mindful of. When you're going to build one of these, the camera wasn't going to fit, and this was the best I could do. I would love to design a 3D print that would go across, and this would sit in the top. So look, if you've got one of the designs for that, please link that down below so I can go and check that out, because I think that would make this build a lot nicer looking anyway. But we've got this hodgepodge build here. I still think it's going to be going pretty well, and what I'm excited about, because I've also got these bad boys we're going to put on it. This is a 5S 850 milliamp hour battery. So this on here, we should be able to test the voltage, rip it around very, very fast, and still see how do we, still see it on a little craft and check out the FPV and the HD recording. Now, just a few little things I noticed when I was building. I did have to swap out the standoff because the stack is quite tall as it is, like I was talking about. And one part I would like to change is, look, you've got some little access. This kind of worked out well with the camera. You've got access to put your SD card in the front right there, which is fine, but that means you've got access to the buttons on the side. But if I swung that around the other way, you're gonna, because these two are perpendicular, that really doesn't go very well. So you're gonna always have access. Let's pretend you had your camera at the front. You're always gonna have access to either the buttons or the card, and then the other part's gonna be hidden. So what would be much nicer if the buttons and the card were on opposite sides, so then you could have it horizontal in your craft. You could access the buttons over this side and still have access to your card. Anyway, might just be a little gripe, but it would be something I'd like to see improved in the future. Anyway, what we should do, let's go on with the fun stuff. Let's take it out, rip it around, see how it goes on a couple of different voltages, and most importantly, find out, is there any latency, and what does the HD recording look like? Because if it works well, it should be great. Anyway, let's cut out and test it around in 3, 2, 1. Rightio, out here in the field, about to rip it around with the little Eachine stack. I'm pretty excited because we've got on something that can take high voltage, as well as something that's not traditionally made to carry a GoPro. So we're going to rip it around, show you some DVR, maybe chase a wing as well, because we've got our wing expert Jono here today. So we're going to be flying around with this, and yeah, show you some HD footage. And then we'll also hand over to Crash Test Cal and see what he thinks. Is there any latency, and how does it go? All right, let's do it. All right, so we're jumping straight in because, look, we've got a fair bit of flight footage to get through, I guess. I want to show you this flight, the maiden one, and then we're going to show you some HD footage, some 5S action. But the one part we're going to look at straight away, look in the top right-hand corner. There's a lot on your screen, but see that green text that says standby? Well, silly me, I thought this thing would be like the split and start recording straight away, and I had the SD card in the wrong spot. So look, overall, I thought I was recording all this stuff, and we had some great wing action where I was chasing around behind Jono, and you'll see him in a little bit as well, but that didn't happen, so that part's a little bit frustrating. But I'll still show you some HD footage a bit later anyway. Here you can see, looking at the sun and then flashing back down, we really don't get any washout or anything like that, so I'm really happy with the way this CMOS is handling those really bright conditions. I think in a moment we're going to jump over. This is it on 5S. And the picture's okay. Look, it's definitely not as good as a CCD or, some of your super HADs or things like that, but I still found it more than flyable. The latency really wasn't an issue for me. I didn't notice it was bugging me whatsoever, but I still wouldn't want to be hitting race gates with it. It was definitely a tiny bit noticeable for me, but only on those really fast, I guess, little flips and hitting gates and that sort of thing. I would say for those everyday little micros, something like this is going to be perfect. And I really say, with talking about that latency, like I would say most pilots probably won't notice it if you're going, if you're one of the people hitting multi-GP races every weekend and, it's becoming, you're really trying to be the best of the best. But if you just want something you can cram in a small size, fly around and not have to put a GoPro on, then I think something like this is going to be great. And especially for these little, I guess, tiny ones that aren't even meant to handle a GoPro or anything like that. It's great to get some of this recording capability. And the crazy part,
it takes a 6S. So look, overall, I'm a pretty big fan, but I have seen some other videos as well where they didn't come up quite so well. In one video, I'll check the description down below. Some people were having some issues with their little stack, so that part's a little bit of a shame. I do think they need to check their quality control. Anyway, what we should do, let's jump over and check out some HD footage as well.
So this part's a little bit annoying. I actually put the SD card in the wrong slot and I thought it was broken, but it turns out nope, I was just an idiot. So we're gonna go back down, show you some HD footage, and then we're gonna jump back in time and then hand it over to Crash Test Cal. All right, let's cut to that HD footage, finally.
All right, so back at this little park, this is where I sort of had to whip out to just so I could record this footage for you guys. Finally, once I figured out, you had to also push the button and have the SD card in the part. But look, overall, I think it turns out pretty well. You guys can be the judge, but for this little 4-inch that's currently on 5S, there's no way traditionally that it'd be handling like this. And for the price, for everything you get, I can't believe you get a great camera that does a great job recording. I would like it to be a little bit even smaller form factor. I know that's sounding a bit nitpicky, but sort of the size of the board, it does limit the tiny quad you could put it in. If they could shrink it down to like a 20 by 20, then you're definitely onto a winner. Now, of course, I'm not saying this is as good as a GoPro or anything like that, and it does only do 1080p, but for me, and I guess even my channel, I'm more than happy to use this sort of footage. And there might be people out there who are expecting more, or maybe they're shooting in 4K or something, but that's not really what this is going after. It's a 6S capable little thing. We should be able to cram it onto some micros. It's 1,000 times better than any DVR. And look, overall, I think it's definitely a step in the right direction, and it's exactly where I want the technology in our hobby to go, because I think this picture honestly looks pretty good, and the price, it's absolutely insane when you consider it's coupled with ESCs, it's got smart audio, it's got your flight controller in there, OSD, really cool, powerful stuff at a great price.
Rightio, so that was really fun to fly around, but I'm not going to say too much about it. Obviously, you guys heard what I said in the voiceover, but we're going to hand it over to Crash Test Cal, give him a whip and see, what does he think of this little Eachine stack. All right, let's do it, Cal. Rightio, Crash Test Cal. You got the Eachine stack, whatever it is, it's linked down below anyway, but ready to rock and roll?
All right, arming on the left, yeah?
Yep.
The camera sort of reminds me of a CMOS camera. You know how it has that little bit of tiling on sharp edges? Not that noticeable, really. One of the best CMOSs I've used. It's not a bad image.
What do you think about in terms of like the little pack? So like something that can take 6S with the ESCs and flight controller, smart audio and a HD camera.
Well, that's just magic, isn't it? That's just fantastic. And to put that on a 5-inch rig and see how it would go would be great. Hopefully it would handle bigger motors. I don't think it'd be a problem. It's a 30 amp ESC, a stack that can take 6S and offer you, what is it, a 1080 image, a full HD image. It's pretty impressive.
Well, we're not sure how the recording's going to look. We're going to have to check that at home because we're out in the field. So we're not sure what the HD is going to come out like, but
I'd say it's flyable.
Are you getting any latency or anything like that?
It's very slight. So I do notice it, but it's not as bad as I thought it would be, to be honest with you. I really didn't think that they were going to pull this off at all. I saw it on Banggood and I looked at it. It looked a bit chinky, a bit cheesy, and I just didn't think it would work at all. But this is working.
What do you mean it wouldn't work? So like what just too many features?
I just thought the latency would be too great. I thought the picture would be crud. And so far, those two things are not the case. Probably recommend it to long ranges actually, because I reckon it'd be nice to have that better picture. I'm not sure if the latency is going to be an issue when you start to hit gates and everything. That's another option for micros that don't have the gumption to carry a GoPro. This would be a great option as well, even though the camera...
Gumption means like gusto or get up and go.
It's an English word, Stu.
Okay.
And where was I lost my train of thought.
I don't know. Probably just rambling. Gumption. But yeah, so overall, I guess, sum this up, what are your thoughts?
Much better than expected.
Okay.
And usable. It's usable and a great price. And look, if you don't like the camera or the way that it works, put it to the side and you've got a great 6S flight stack. Fantastic.
Nice. Thanks, Cal.
It reminds me of the Eagle camera. When I look through it and see the image, that's what it reminds me of.
Right, so Jono, you're a bit of more of a wing expert, but what do you think about flying around with this little Eachine stack? So it's up to a 6S ESC, it's got your HD recorder, smart audio, pretty much just everything to get ready to get flying for a pretty good price. How's it feel in the air?
The picture looks pretty nice actually. I dabble in a fair few micros as well, and so I'm using a lot of those smaller CMOS all-in-one units, and the CMOS camera on this absolutely kicks the ass off of those. Yeah, so compared to those smaller CMOS units, very, very good.
Would you be putting this on your wings or more on your micros, or a bit of both?
Definitely micros, absolutely. Yeah, if I could squeeze in something as small as possible, I would totally take that. I think that's what a lot of the micros are lacking at the moment, is the ability to take good HD.
What about the latency? Is it feeling too different to sort of what you're used to?
I'll give it a quick wiggle. Nothing noticeable. Just cruising around, nothing noticeable.
All right, well, I'm going to let you finish that pack, but thanks for your little insights there. You got a heap of Instagram stuff too, so I'm going to link that down below, because I know you do a bit of wing stuff and micro stuff. So not so much the full size races, but anyway, check out Jono's Instagram somewhere as well. Anyway, thanks, Jono. Alrighty, so there it is. There's my review. Finally, this one seemed like it took forever to get done, but there's my review of the Eachine Stack X F4. And overall, look, I kind of have mixed feelings. My unit right here, it worked flawlessly. I really liked it. The recording was pretty good. We had a little bit of jello, but I do think the quality control is a little bit hit and miss, because I've seen some other videos where people haven't had quite as much success. But for the price, I think, look, Eachine tends to do things really cheap. The quality's not always the best, but the features packed in here, I'm a massive fan of it. I mean, especially the ability, it can take a 5S, you can put it on a 4-inch and absolutely rip it around and get some HD footage. That stuff really isn't possible in the past, so it's pretty cool to be seeing that in a really cheap, nice little form factor. Now, one of my biggest gripes, besides feeling silly, I really don't like the fact that you've got the SD card on a perpendicular part to the buttons on the side, and I do wish it would start recording straight away. I don't know how many times I flew off. Once I realized I had the SD card in the wrong spot, I don't know how many times I flew off. I thought, oh, I forgot to press that button, bring it back, and then start it again. So I wish it was just like the Split in that regard, where the Split starts up straight away as soon as you plug it in. I don't like how the Stack right here, you've got to press a button. So that part is a little bit annoying as well. And another bit too, like, I don't like how the camera is so big. It does make it very difficult. You've got to sort of have a special frame. It sticks right out the front, and it's not going to fit in some of those smaller compact ones, which is exactly where I wanted, like a 4-inch. I mean, I had to do this bit of a crazy little silly mod on the top, and it's really not ideal. So I would like it if the camera was shrunk down sort of to a normal usable size anyway. Anyway, what do you guys think about it? I'll put some links down below, because look, I have seen some other videos as well where people weren't getting the same results, so we're getting some yellow lines and stuff. And if that was happening with my unit, I would say definitely don't buy it. My one worked well, but yeah, I have seen some other videos out there where they just don't seem to be performing like this one, so maybe their quality control is a little bit of a question. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that. Subscribe for more FPV related content, and as always, happy flying. Alrighty, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. Definitely subscribe if you're new to the channel and check out these videos. And I'm also going to leave a little link here to my Patreon page, because I've got some fantastic Patreon supporters and I like to give back to them as well. So if you want to join the UAVfutures family, there's things like bonus velcro straps, little bundles of FPV goodies and things like that that also get sent out. Anyway, happy flying.